is it important to take care of thistle in our pastures?
Well, Canada thistle is a commonly found perennial weed species in Saskatchewan and across Western Canada. It's a very prolific seed producer, and it also has a very aggressive creeping root system. So those two features of the plant lead it to be very aggressive in pasture stands, and it's able to spread very easily. So when you see Canada thistle in a pasture stand, essentially as the thistle population increases, your forage yields decline, which will result in lower pasture productivity and less profitability on your farm, essentially.
Yeah. So what are some control strategies?
There are a few control options available. These control options are certainly effective when used alone, but a greater chance of control success will come out of using an integrated approach, so using more than one of these control options. To begin with, there's a number of herbicides available, broadleaf herbicides available that are registered for use on Canada thistle. But in a pasture situation, the best choices for long-term control of Canada thistle are those herbicides that contain picloram, metasulfuron, or aminopyrrolate. And I really strongly suggest to refer to the Guide to Crop Protection for product application rates and product timing. But the thing to remember with a herbicide application, whether you're using a broadcast or blanket application with a large field sprayer or some type of selective application through a weed wiper or spot spraying, you should, the plant stage at the time of a herbicide application should be early bud, just as the flowers are beginning to develop. At that plant stage, when you apply the herbicides, that offers you the best timing for the most effective control and the long-term control. The other thing to remember when you're using these broadleaf herbicides is that if you have broadleaf plants, desirable broadleaf plants in your forage stand, those plants will be impacted by the herbicide as well, and you'll likely see those plants be severely stressed, or likely plant death will occur. So in those cases, you're looking at your beneficial legumes and forbs. You have to be aware that they will be affected when you're using these types of herbicides in those situations. If you have 100% grass pasture stand, again, the broadleaf herbicide use won't be an issue in your field. Another control option is mowing. Mowing requires several operations in a year, and you need to do that over a number of years. So often mowing isn't always effective because of the number of times you have to do it, and it doesn't always become economical when you're out there. And the third option available for controlling thistles is an intensive rotational grazing management. So if you remember that a healthy forage stand is likely the best way to battle against pasture weeds such as thistle, that an intensive rotational grazing system allows you to, maximize your forage yields and give your pasture lots of rest, which is what the forage species need to recover from the grazing. So when you move from a continuous system to a rotational system, the cattle are actually forced to consume, so they defoliate the thistle and they trample the thistle, and that weakens the plant and it prevents it from setting seed. So the seed isn't allowed to spread, and actually the root systems are weakened because the plant has been weakened, and so it doesn't as aggressively spread, and over time the thistle populations are controlled.
And is that more effective than the mowing strategy then?
Yes, as long as you can maintain that intensive system, and as long as you're going in for a short period of time grazing and allowing the pasture adequate time to recover, that those desirable species can recover, that is more effective than the mowing. A one-time mowing operation has been found to increase the thistle populations. So while it may prevent the seed or flowering or the seed from spreading in the year, actually it's allowed the plant to become more prolific from the root system, and so actually the population grows.
Going back to herbicides,
yeah.
Has anybody ever used like a wipe application of glyphosate in the fall?
Yes, in Alberta there's been research projects done where they were using a weed wiper with glyphosate applications, and they were effective. But what they found also too, obviously that they were damaging some of the desirable species in the stand. But what they found was that the thistle was impacted, and that the recovery of the plant species or the recovery of the desirable species was greater than the recovery from the thistle. So it did make an impact, and it was effective, but you have to remember, because glyphosate is a broad spectrum herbicide, that you are affecting everything out there in the field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So taller plants will
Yeah,
be hit.
yeah, for sure.
And then just another question on herbicides. Some of those that you mentioned have pretty long residual periods, so that's probably something we need to consider as well.
Yes. That's for sure. That's why you're getting the best control with the use of those types of herbicides with those active ingredients, because they are noted for having a residual effect. So you have to think about your recropping strategies long term. Some of those herbicides have residual effect up to 5 years. So if you're trying to look to reestablish any broadleaf plants in that field, 2 or 3 years following an application of one of those herbicides, there may be issues with that. So you just have to be cognizant of the recropping restrictions related to using some of those more longer term herbicides.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.